Hi, I'm Peter Blanche and welcome to the Reach Australia podcast. Today we're continuing our series on church and mergers, and it's the third episode. And again, you might be listening because you're keen to be involved in a church merge soon, or you might be listening because you're just very interested in seeing how church mergers work, either for the health of churches around you or because of your interest in reaching Australia for Christ. Now, of course, for Reach Australia, our vision is to see thousands, and we're talking thousands of healthy, multiplying evangelistic churches. And church mergers is most likely going to be one of the key parts of strategies to see that happen across the country. Scott, you're with us again today. Welcome.
Good to be here, Pete.
It's great that you're here. Now, Scott, we've called this episode Replicating Health. Replicating Health. Give us why we called it that.
Yeah, it's one of the conversations that we have with churches when we do a general health consult. And so we've got a real simple framework, now, where and how. So we ask the question, where are you at now? Really press into your current situation, asking the hard questions of, where is church at? We then want churches to dream, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you actually, want to be? Yeah. And then after doing those two, answering those two questions, we then push into how are we actually going to get there? And with a church, there's really only sort of three options in terms of thinking about, growing and becoming a larger church in the sense of having a larger missional footprint and reaching the lost in increasing numbers. The first is just expanding on our existing site. So you can add another congregation, you can just expand the site.
Expand the building and make it bigger and get more people in.
That's it. So expand the building, so expansion. The second is church planting. Actually, we're not going to expand where we are here, we're actually going to send out. And then another option is multi-site. And so that's where the merger conversation, often happens. We're going to merge and we're going to have two locations. We're going to merge with another church and actually repot, replant. Could look at a number of different ways.
Yeah. And of course, when you do expand, when you do grow, you want it to be done from a healthy base. We want to replicate, which means duplicate, make repeatable health.
That's right. So in that multi-site conversation, that's the question. We actually, are you healthy, and what does healthy look like, and are you then healthy? And so we actually want to replicate that health in that other location. And generally, we say to churches, you actually want to get the sending church healthy before you actually start a new thing. That'll mean that you can then start the next new thing a lot more easily, and you'll start building momentum up in a faster way.
Absolutely. Now, look, in the church merger conversation, though, what we don't want to see is replicating unhealth. Okay, have you ever seen kind of, what are the dangers first of two unhealthy churches merging?
Yeah, well, I one of the key dangers is they actually don't ask that hard now question, how are we actually going? They'd actually press into, we actually don't have a large missional footprint. We've been declining over the last few years. We haven't seen conversion growth in our church. We haven't seen people grow in their knowledge and their love of Jesus. We haven't seen people maturing. So they're actually not asking. They need to ask that question if we're not seeing that, and that's often because as you move on the other side of the life cycle and you move towards sort of maintenance and preservation and then decline, what most churches do in that stage is they really hold on to the status quo and they really hold on to what they have been doing and they don't ask those hard questions. Often it's hard to see too because financially, often on this side of the life cycle, churches are doing pretty well. So things are comfortable. We're still getting most of our needs met, and we're financially pretty strong.
That's right. And sometimes when there's often one church, not all the time, but often one church who's quite potentially unhealthy and shrinking and dying, and the impetus to merge has come from that situation. And then they can look across the road or across the suburb, and they can see actually what might be quite a large church or a medium-sized church, and they can just assume it's healthy.
Yeah, that's it. And so the process of going through a merge for both churches, should really involve a real hard look at how you're both going, and so that both churches are kind of going with their eyes wide open and saying, okay, how are we actually going? So in that feasibility phase, where they're asking the questions of each other, they really want to press into that health question as well.
That's exactly right, isn't it?
I also think, again, a merger process, it's another change process. It's another point in time opportunity to really use it for effective change, and so actually using it as the point in time where you're actually saying, okay, we want to change how we're doing things, or things aren't working. It can be a really useful conversation to be having with your wider church, and so be a stimulus for change.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity, actually, for both churches to think about their own health as they are. Even if the merge doesn't happen, that can be a real win for both churches.
Yeah, again, we'll keep going back to that. I keep going back to that merger math. 1 + 1 = 3, 5, 10. For me, in every conversation, I want to be saying to churches, we want to be better together. Now, it's partly why I find the book Better Together such a helpful push, because the hope and the desire of the writers of the book and their research and the findings that they've sort of come to is that actually the merger conversation needs to result in a better together.
Yeah. Now, look, talking about replicating health, have you ever seen a situation where the health question hasn't been asked early enough in the piece and two churches have really merged far too quickly?
Yeah, I think in Australia, with our sort of do-it-yourself attitude, with our our desire to sort of get things done and to not necessarily dot all the T's and have the perfect spreadsheet, I think we do often rush in and don't ask all those pre-questions. We often as well, we've got that real evangelistic desire, and so we want to actually see the new thing start, and so we often start something that is weak and that's not strong. So I think it's partly to do with us and our culture. In America, the churches that I visited and the website, the webinars and other things that I've been to, there's a real almost precision scientific approach to when do we start a new thing and how do we actually pull the merger conversation together. Spreadsheets, numbers, making sure everything kind of lines up. And there's that real hardness of we're not going to do this unless the numbers line up. I don't often see that in our Australian context. We've often got intuitive leaders. We see an opportunity and we go, oh great, it'd be really good to get this smaller church. It's got buildings, it's got a place that we've been wanting to get to, and they actually don't ask the hard questions. Actually, is this going to help us in our mission? Is this going to help us in the mission of reaching this whole region? So often what can look like a great opportunity, we get this great building, we get this great ministry, I think can be something that actually slows down momentum and can put a pause on growth. So I think even for what we call the lead church and the joining church, the lead church, which is often the one with health, vitality and momentum, they still need to be asking the question, is this going to actually help us with our mission as well? Yeah. And often it's the joining church with the kind of, this is just too good to be true. Yeah. We are getting a building, we are getting those resources. Know that it is going to slow down your mission for a time. There is a lot of work involved in pulling two groups together, rethinking about how you're going to do things. Every church comes with baggage, and it comes with people with baggage and pastoral issues and problems. And so you need to realise that this could slow things down. So I know, church I'm a part of at the moment, they merged 4 or 5 years ago now with a church that was dying. Just the complexity of the governance meetings. We went from being a church plant with no property and a budget of kind of $200,000 to a church that has lots of property, is now thinking about gutters and roofing and church property, filling out forms for the denomination. All those sorts of things, that can actually slow you down in your missional impetus.
Now, all this is highlighting, isn't it, the great need to pay attention to the current health, because you want to replicate health, not ill health, which just raises that question: is that, well, what ought we be looking at as we kind of measure their health? If we are potentially in a merged situation, both the lead church and the joining church ought to think about the factors of their health. Now, what factors should we be focusing in on?
Well, most healthy churches are growing. So a really easy, stat, an easy sort of health measure is just to look at your attendance growth. So again, generally with two churches merging, there's one where there hasn't been or has been a significant decline in attendance. There's another church that's been, growing and growing, steadily or growing unhealthy. I also, can see that as well. They're just growing too fast, and often that's what's pushed the merger conversation. So there's that attendance growth. The second big one.
Before you move on there, of course, the joining the lead church shouldn't be just seeing this as the church growth opportunity to boost their numbers.
No,
they ought to be seeing the healthy growth already, and that this will be a boost to their numbers in some margin. But they want to be healthy in their growth already.
Yeah, that's it. And that's often why they're the lead church. That's why the struggling churches join. They've seen this church in the local community grow, and they're like, actually, we want to see our resources stewarded well. Yeah. We're now at a size where we can't do that. And we actually want to jump into the mission that seems to be working over here and really be part of that bigger, larger vision that you've got. So second one is just conversion growth. I think healthy churches are seeing people move from death to life regularly. So you want to be seeing conversion growth. You want to see a church that's on mission and that's actually seeing converts and seeing people mobilise for mission. Prayerful, not only for local mission but also global mission.
Just key. It's just key. It's hard actually to. Many churches, even listening in, church leaders listening in, would love to see that steady stream of conversion growth, and it is clearly part of a healthy church. And so it's a key part of vitality. Yeah,
and so the other thing that we often look at in terms of health is are people serving? So again, often a merged church, it could mean the closure of one, but often it means we're actually going to, at some point in time, start a new thing. That means you're going to need to raise up more leaders, raise up more people to serve in ministries across two locations. It means a shift in the staff team often. They need to, to have the complexity of being across two sites, which often means they actually have to change from kind of being in the ministry to being on the ministry and coaching people. Yeah. So the shift often in a merge is to actually, raise up and have a lot more people serving. Positively, there's an opportunity for more people to serve in a church. Yeah. So you need to be paying attention all through this process of serving.
I think that's a really important piece of health that you want to see replicated, because if a church merge is on and the joining church joins, it's quite possible for the lead church to be thinking, at last we've got some more people to come and join us we can't fill our kids' teams or our music teams, and here is a bunch of people that can come and help us. Yep. If they're thinking that already, they need to have health in terms of growing their leaders, growing the pipeline of new leaders. This isn't the solution to their serving roster problems or team problems.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to create more.
Absolutely.
But hopefully, if it's planned and well thought through, it'll provide the opportunity, the burning platform, so to speak, to actually get some change happening. Yeah. Now, the other kind of hard statistic you often see in churches is just that giving number. And I think giving often is a sign of the health of the church's vision. Yeah. People give to vision, and so if the giving is strong, in the lead church, often it's because there is this larger, bigger vision. So, as I said, often in a church that's struggling and dying, giving is quite high, and so the financial situation seems to be looking pretty good, because often they're wanting to maintain the status quo. So for that lead church, giving's a really crude number to sort of see, are people on board here? Are they positive about where we're going as a church? Again, in the merger process, all the way along, you want to be creating opportunities for people to be saying, we're for this, we're for this, we're for this. And then ultimately in that declaration stage that I talked about, in the is it desirable, you actually got buy-in from a large group of people to say, yeah, we want to move forward with this. Yeah.
Crucial piece, isn't it? Because the financial piece you can in your example before, you can be all of a sudden getting some financial burdens in the merge. Mm. Sometimes you actually can be getting an enormous amount of financial assets. It could go the other way too.
Yep.
But it is a real sign of health. Now, of course, that plays into the other area of spiritual health, church health, that we ought to be pushing into, which is just the maturity of the people. Mm. So giving is also a sign of maturity, not just a sign.
Yeah, that's it. And NCLS has some great questions around that, importance of God and are people spiritually growing. Again, those surveys don't come around quick enough or often enough, to get a real ongoing sense of are people growing in this church. But again, generally with the lead church, they've got the momentum. There's a vitality there. People are joining. There's lots of newcomers joining as well, and generally that's the church that actually has the sort of strong culture that we're wanting to join. That's why the merged church is saying we want to join you.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. Now, look, of course, another part of health here of that we want to see replicated. The lead church will need to have a strong community, fellowship, membership, whatever you want to call it, aspect to its church life, because they're about to receive a bunch of people who are likely to be grieving some of the changes that have just happened. How important is this part?
Yeah, again, I think just in the planning stage and the process of merge, that declaration is important, and then that integration phase is really important. I think it's important for church leaders to pay attention to celebrating and celebrating what has happened in this church over the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. So really to pay attention to that as part of that grieving process as well, and to really honour the people and give thanks to the people that God has used to grow this church. So as part of that, we do want to celebrate, and so that's where we want to celebrate the community that is merging, being absorbed, rebirthed. At the same time, hopefully the healthy church has a developed pathway so that you can intentionally integrate and consolidate members of the merged church as well. I just want to say though, there is a reality that there will be some who'll be like, yep, this is great, I'm in. You had me at church. They didn't even get to the merger part. There'll be a number of people who will actually they won't want to join this thing. They'll find it really hard and they'll leave. In some ways, that's a sad thing. But you don't want to have as your sort of goal, we want 100% of people to merge in. There will be a number of people who will say, actually, this is not for us. And in many ways, that's about them saying, we want to be part of this larger vision, or we actually don't want to be part of this larger vision. There'll be a whole group of people in between who will take time, but you helping them understand the significance of this, the importance of this, the benefit of this to the overall mission is critical.
Look, that just reminds me, Scott, that one of the crucial signs of health is clarifying the big thing. We know in the Reach Australia framework, having clarity around the big thing really matters. And a key sign of health is that actually for both the merging church or the lead church and then the joining church, they both need to have clarity around what really matters.
And they do. And I actually think that missional urge, and it really needs to be the motivation for both churches being part of this process. Absolutely. That really needs to drive how they're engaging with it and how they're moving. Because if you're about preservation, if that's your motivation, or if you're about maintaining the status quo, then really you're just going to get more of the same. You're just going to be dragging more people down with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that willingness that drive to see deeper disciples, and in ever increasing numbers. That keeping that as the big thing that is rallying people to this. Well, what effectively is now a new thing. This merged entity is now a new thing. So that people aren't getting caught up in the ill health of just inappropriate identity, that my church and its identity is what defines me as a Christian, therefore. But yeah, having the clarity of vision is, I think, a crucial part of health that needs to be given very close attention to. Yeah. Now, other areas of replicating health?
Well, again, I think, often the merger process, often if it means going to new locations, having new places, means that you can actually replicate some of the healthy mission systems you've got in one place, just in another community. And so I think if you've already got a good mission, structure and systems and processes there, then you can hopefully replicate them in a new place a lot more easily. So again, for the lead church, really taking a hard look at everything they're doing, and then intentionally thinking, what are we going to do in this new location, or what are we going to do with this merged church, is really important. In seeing health replicated.
Now, Scott, the health key piece is really quite important. And look, pastors and church leaders are often measuring and thinking about the health of their own work. But I think it can be really helpful to have an outside set of eyes on it.
Yeah, I think particularly in this conversation, you're trying to bring together two groups. So actually having an independent third party come in and help you identify the questions that you need to be asking, help walk you through the process, help actually encourage engagement, I think is really useful. So that the lead church necessarily, isn't necessarily driving it, and the joining church isn't necessarily, the one driving. Having someone in the middle who can help you
Absolutely,
both do
the
that.
middle person can really help the complexity there, but also notice blind spots. Each church with its health can easily have blind spots that they just they care, they love their church families, they are looking at the details and their health, but they can easily have a blind spot that they've missed. That could easily be a crucial piece that both sides need to understand in the merger.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now, Scott, are there any resources that you think could be really helpful here?
Yeah, I mentioned the book Better Together. I always think it's helpful to have examples and other tools to sort of help guide you in a process. The expanded book's got a whole bunch of templates and tools as well that can be helpful just in thinking that through. Obviously, engage us. We've been working with a number of churches through this merger process as well. We've got tools, templates, processes, timelines. Engage us. We're more than happy to work with churches and get alongside them. The other tool I always use, this is the other resource I always talk about is just going and talking with someone who's been through that process. I think there's a real power in going and hearing someone's story and asking them, what do you wish you had done, that you now know in hindsight, and, what were some of the key mistakes that you've made as well in the process.
Yeah, because it's one thing to think about it beforehand, but to speak to someone who's actually done it, you'll see things you've not realised. And of course, at Reach Australia, we really want church mergers to be as healthy and as successful as possible.
Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity. As I said at the start of this podcast, I actually thought there'd be more opportunities at the start of COVID. I think COVID, was going to start accelerating the decline of churches. I don't think we've seen that in, at least at this stage. But I think the next 12 to 18 months, there will be a number of church leaders and churches will be going, maybe this is a opportunity for us to be able to actually do more together and to reach our region.
Yeah, well, Scott, it's been great talking about replicating health, because of course in our church mergers we want churches to be healthy. Actually, all churches, whether you are merging or not, health is really quite critical. And if you are looking for more resources to help you in that, please head along to the Reach Australia website, reachaustralia.com.au. There's a page there on resources that can give you great help in many things to do with the health of your church. My name's Peter Blanch. Thanks for listening.